Hi, all. One of our last 5 for 5s. Um, if you're watching this, you guys are going to do great tomorrow. I have a lot of confidence. I appreciate your hard work. I do want to go over the practice concept FRQ real quickly. So they're going to give you a scenario, and it is okay that you do not necessarily know what the scenario is about going into it. Very rarely will you. So this is just an example I gave. It's practice. I give a rubric too if you want to score yourselves. But they give a scenario. Let me just pull it up. It's up here. Um, and from it, you're going to extrapolate. Hopefully, you get some information. You're able to know what's going on. Now, for tomorrow's test, there's going to be 3 parts: A, B, and C. Now, within A, B, and C, there's going to be 5 verbs: describe and explain. To describe, you've got to give evidence that you know what's going on. You've maybe got to relate it to other things, but you've got to make it very clear that you know what's going on. The explain verb is deeper. You've got to explain why it relates to some larger concept overall. For the test, I would have the template out. For the concept, I would have the interactions worksheet that I created. Make sure you have that. So here was a scenario. I'm not going to go through it. I'm not going to read it because it's more about how to answer it for in general, not just this example, but how to answer all of them. So your A will typically be 2 points. It's out of 5. A, describe how checks and balances are involved based on it. So they're going to give you a definition and explain why Congress might want courts to hear future cases regarding the War Powers Act. They're going to have you describe something and explain it. Now, you have to reference the scenario. If it says reference the scenario, you've got to use some examples from above. You got to talk about evidence that's going on specifically in the scenario. A nice trick for this is to actually quote it. So make sure you know what's going on, quote it, but hit them over the head. Provide multiple times where you are specifically referencing what's going on above. Now, if they tell you to explain, typically after an explain verb, like you see here, there's going to be a term that maybe is not clear. It's some vocab term. Do not assume the reader knows what it is. Define that term. So explain why Congress might want the courts to hear future cases regarding the War Powers Act. I would define the War Powers Act is. How does this relate to federalism? Federalism refers to this. Maybe it's a Supreme Court case. This Supreme Court case demonstrates this, but define it. And here's where I would just add the echo vocab. Explain why Congress might want the courts to hear future cases regarding the War Powers Resolution. I would say the Congress might want the courts to hear future cases regarding the War Powers Resolution because. So echo locate or echo response is totally fine. If they give you a verb or term, you got to define it, but make sure explicitly you're answering both verbs, describe and explain. And then the reference in the scenario, reference it. Be explicit and make sure that you relate it to actual things that are going on above. The other thing too is you got to give an outcome plus a desired action. So what can Congress do to maybe change the situation? Well, Congress can pass a law. That's not good enough. You got to say what that law is and then how it achieves some desired outcome. Citizens can protest. Well, that's the action. What's the desired outcome? They can protest to try and persuade Congress to vote in accordance to what they like, you're specifically referencing. B, referencing the scenario. So again, you've got to reference what's going on. I would add quotes. Explain how the Supreme Court case could apply to Marbury versus Madison. Well, there was an explain verb. If there's an explain verb, well, then I've got to have a term that I'm going to define. Okay. Describe what is Marbury versus Madison. And within that Marbury versus Madison, there's going to be some connection to the scenario. There's going to be some connection B to what they ask from you to the scenario, and your explanation has to demonstrate how the two are connected. So what they give you the scenario to what term they want you to describe, there's some connection. Make that connection. And I'm just giving examples. It won't be Marbury versus Madison necessarily tomorrow. But again, a great tip is for you to go over this document. It'll help. Spend some time going over it. So that was just one verb, explain. So it's only going to be worth 1 point. Part 3, there's describe and explain. Describe which congressional powers would be impacted by the judicial branch's action. So here is a tip. You've got to actually answer the prompt. And I would do that echo answering. A congressional power that would be impacted by the judicial branch's actions would be X, Y, and Z. Again, it doesn't need to be the best written work, but make sure you are explicitly answering what is being asked of you. And I would underline it. I would, again, do that echo answering to the prompt. It's okay. Actually, the readers are going to like it. So describe that. Explain how the war powers resolution affects formal powers of the president. One formal power of the president that would be affected by the war powers resolution is, and then give a formal power. Make sure you are answering all the verbs. I think a sentence to 2 sentences for describe is needed. Explain, you got to define the term. I would give examples with necessary. This is a 15-minute, 3-paragraph A, B, and C answers worth 5 points. You guys are going to do great tomorrow. All the best to you. But again, make sure that you are effectively answering the terms, each verb. Make sure that you're defining vocab terms, especially after the word explain. If you see explain the war powers resolution, well, tell me what the war powers resolution is. If they give you an explain, provide some scenario, make some greater connection, provide the echolocation. All that is going to help you. All right. You guys are going to do great. We'll see you tomorrow. Zoom will go over this in more detail as well. All the best to you.